Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today I'm taking you to the Master League Premier Cup, where we get to check out one of the coolest possible Shadow Pokemon that you could have in this format. That is a perfect IV, level 50 Shadow Annihilate. These battles are submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Arb, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, as this Master League Premier Cup meta evolves, we see Pokemon like Hydreigon, Snorlax, and Kingambit all being top meta contenders. Those Pokemon all have a shared weakness to fighting, and that's where Shadow Annihilate can be an interesting anti-meta pick. So without further ado, let's hop onto the matches, and in game number 1, Shadow Annihilate is staring down Shadow Dragonite. Immediate safe switch into Metagross, and it appears the opponent does not have a strong answer to this Pokemon. Instead, they're just going to stay in with Dragonite, so Metagross will launch Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash lands, Dragonite gets rocked, but Dragonite will return fire with a hard-hitting Superpower. Superpower lands, Metagross now very low, as in comes Gholdengo. It's a Hex Gholdengo. Meteor Mash is resisted, but will still do a ton of damage, and Gholdengo will put up the shield and get a big farm down. Gholdengo will exit with a massive amount of energy, and if they have Focus Blast, this could be a disaster for Kingambit. Kingambit puts up the shield, but they do not have it. Instead, they just have Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam, not going to do a ton of damage to Kingambit. This only hits for neutral damage, and Kingambit is very bulky. This Kingambit is making a bit of an interesting moveset choice, opting for Dark Pulse over Foul Play. Dark Pulse has worse pacing, but does allow Kingambit to two-shot Gyarados, whereas Foul Play falls short. Back in comes the Dragonite. Unfortunately, Metal Sound does not take the knockout before they make a last-second Superpower. In the back, it's revealed they have Metagross, and this is going to be a very tough game to win. A potential win con could have been catching the Superpower onto Annihilate, but unfortunately without that catch, this is going to be a very difficult game. Meteor Mash lands, taking the knockout, in comes Annihilape. The question is, can the Shadow Hundo Annihilape survive a Meteor Mash? Meteor Mash is an incredibly strong attack. Meteor Mash lands, Annihilape hangs on, Annihilape farms down Dragonite on very low HP, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, we see the Dream Lead Shadow Annihilape into Magnazone. Opponent safe switches into Gyarados, and Annihilape is going to stay in and get hit with an Aqua Tail. Annihilape can look to no shield and just send in Kingambit. Looks like Annihilape will actually go for the Close Combat. Close Combat does do slightly more damage here than a Rage Fist. Close Combat is going to be no shielded, and now in comes Kingambit. I think Annihilate probably could have banked that energy and then brought in the Kingambit because Aqua Tail does such little damage in this matchup. Kingambit can pretty comfortably survive 3 moves. Kingambit gonna be no shielding Aqua Tail once again, looking to overfarm to the max before going for the Dark Pulse, but no going for the Iron Head. This is an interesting play because this might make the opponent think that this Kingambit has Focus Blast. Back in comes the Magnazone. Kingambit farms up to a potential Focus Blast. Will the opponent fall for it? Kingambit going for the Dark Pulse, gets the shield. The opponent does fall for the bait, and now Kingambit gets to make a last-second Dark Pulse. The opponent knows at this point it's not going to be a Focus Blast, but that still does some pretty significant damage. In comes Annihilate, but unfortunately Annihilate gets his counter denied. Magnazone baits with the Mirror Shot. This could be the Wild Charge. Annihilate gonna go down both shields as Magnazone full sends. In the back, oh no, it's Flores, and this game is over. Flores just simply cannot do enough damage to Metagross, even though Flores can apply debuff after debuff after debuff. Unfortunately, it's just not going to matter because they can't do any meaningful damage to the Metagross, and Meteor Mash, even when debuffed, is just absolutely devastating. Flores fires off another Chilling Water. Metagross still not going to get knocked out by a third Chilling Water here. Opponent tries for the catch onto Magnazone. They do not get it. Annihilate farms down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, another great lead, Shadow Annihilape into Snorlax. Now this Shadow Annihilape, it does not have Ice Punch, it's rocking Close Combat, and it's going straight for it. A lot of Annihilapes run Ice Punch, opponent may decide to call a bait, and they do, and they get immediately KO'd. In comes a Waterfall Gyarados, and this could actually be a problem. Most Gyarados in this meta are on Dragon Breath. And with 2 steel types in the bag, Dragon Breath is not really a problem, but with Waterfall will hit for some pretty significant fast move pressure into this entire team. Dark Pulse is going to land. Kingambit able to make Dark Pulse number 2, and just like that, Gyarados will be forced to give up a shield if it wants to hold on to this energy. Shield comes up from Gyarados. Gyarados, can it get the farm down? No, it cannot. It looks like the Waterfall would have missed the knockout, and they're forced to take the KO with an Aqua Tail. Back in comes Annihilape. A quick switch into the Metagross, saving the Annihilape, and the opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is Kingambit. Kingambit will do some sizable damage with Foul Play, but Metagross can hang on. Metagross farming up to 100 energy. I think Metagross might just let this go, because if they do, this is just free farm for Annihilape. And the moment the Gyarados gets switched in, Annihilape can fire off the Rage Fist, boost up its counters, and just farm everything down for an easy win. Foul Play does get shielded, in comes Gyarados, Annihilape does not throw the Rage Fist, gets the counter down anyway, back in comes Kingambit, and Annihilape has the back-to-back Rage Fist. Rage Fist does get shielded. Oh, Annihilape has the close combat. I don't even want to know how much damage a boosted close combat does here. Close combat, massive overkill onto Kingambit to secure the win. We move to the next game, Shadow Annihilape into Togekiss. This is an absolutely atrocious lead. Save switch into Kingambit, but Togekiss can stay in, fire off the Aura Sphere. Kingambit has to respect this, and unfortunately, Kingambit is now down a shield and gets completely walled by an opposing Kingambit. This is already going to be a very difficult game to win unless the opponent respects the Focus Blast, but they don't. No respect for Focus Blast from the opponent, and that's going to make a very tough game even more difficult. Taking advantage of the switch timer will be key, able to save energy on Kingambit, send in the Shadow Annihilape, and Annihilape is going to look to no shield and go for a full farm down. Switch clock comes up for the opponent at the perfect time. They're able to save Kingambit and bring back in the Togekiss. Rage Fist, no shielded by the Togekiss. Togekiss is going to look for a full farm down, but they don't get it. Shadow Annihilape, just enough HP to make a last-second Rage Fist, and this Rage Fist will force a shield. In comes Metagross, but unfortunately, Metagross is not a particularly convincing answer when Togekiss has back-to-back Aura Spheres loaded. Togekiss is going to get great value out of their energy, as Aura Sphere after Aura Sphere is going to connect. In comes Kingambit, firing off that Iron Head, but the opponent is going to make a switch and a catch onto their own Kingambit. They survive on 1 HP, and they're going to make a last-second Foul Play. Oh, that is an unfortunate survive. It's all going to come down to what does the opponent have in the back. They're unlikely to bring back in the Togekiss. It's Rhyperior, and unfortunately, this game will be a loss, because the opponent should know they can always no-shield Iron Head and then just get a full farm down. If they shielded the Iron Head, then they would have lost the game, but they correctly calculated that Iron Head is not nearly as good of a move as a Meteor Mash, so they no-shield the Iron Head, and Rhyperior, unfortunately, will be able to sweep the double steel backline. Shadow Annihilape into Primarina. Primarina, not a Pokemon that's seen too frequently, especially not with Waterfall, but Primarina definitely not a Pokemon that Annihilape wants to deal with. Primarina fires off the Hydro Cannon, no shield comes out from Kingambit, as the opponent will send out Magnazone. Magnazone's going to take some pretty substantial damage from Dark Pulse, and there's always a threat of a Focus Blast, but the opponent does not respect the Focus Blast whatsoever. They fire off energy, Mirror Shot will not KO, they go for the Wild Charge, but this should set up farm for Annihilape. Annihilape gets the perfect farm down. If they bring back in that Primarina, then Primarina might honestly be in a bit of trouble, but they send in their final Pokemon, and this is Flores. So they are just ABA weak to Metagross. So Annihilape will definitely just stay in this matchup and try and get as much damage as it possibly can. Flores has enough for the Moonblast. Annihilape calls the bluff. It's not a Moonblast. It's just going to be the Chilling Water. Annihilape now going to get to ramp up its attack once again with the Rage Fist. Flores with the no shield. They're saving all shields, hoping Primarina will be able to sweep in the back. It looked like that may have been a simultaneous knockout if they committed to the farm down, so they will fire off the Chilling Water instead. In comes Metagross, and Metagross will never be shielding Chilling Water. Opponent, their Primarina is completely energy dry, and that's what's going to lose them this game, because Metagross can just strictly outpace. Primarina's pacing is not great. Waterfall, not known for its energy generation. So for Metagross, the only worry would be potentially getting Waterfall down, but Metagross should have enough HP where that will not happen. The pacing from Shadow Claw to Meteor Mash is just incredibly fast for Metagross. The shield comes up, and these Waterfalls, they're just simply not cutting it. Pausing the turn, making sure there's no catch once you see the Waterfall animation start. You can take the knockout with Meteor Mash. Back in comes Flores, and the opponent will concede the match. Oh, what a lead in the next match. Shadow Annihilape into Avalugg. Opponent save switches into Rhyperior Trainer, no, and they're just getting absolutely torn to smithereens. The fighting disrespect getting punished. The shield comes up on the Rage Fist. I mean, Rhyperior shouldn't really have a move that can do a lot of damage here. Rhyperior goes for a Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe applies a debuff, but Breaking Swipe is a pretty terrible move. Annihilape gonna boost his attack right back up with the Rage Fist. Rhyperior puts up the shield just to get ruthlessly countered down. They bring in a Mamoswine, and they're triple weak to fighting. Oh no, Mamoswine will get shredded by the Rage Fist. In comes Avalugg, and Avalugg is just going to get torn to smithereens by Kingambit. Kingambit, these metal sounds are adding up. Avalugg, I believe this Avalugg can learn Earthquake, but it would not KO. They go for a crunch, fishing for a debuff. They do get the debuff, but there's just no way out. I'm shocked at this point that the opponent has not conceded the match yet. Ironhead will take the KO. Back in comes the Mamoswine. They're playing it out to the bitter end, but there was just never a chance. The moment they saw the Annihilape, honestly, they probably could have just top left it, because Annihilape just completely destroys that team. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Annihilape into Dragonite, but this time it is not the Shadow Dragonite. Dragonite, it looks like they did throw an alignment there as they fire off a Thunder Punch. Annihilape, not going to be worried about that whatsoever. Annihilape going to farm up, bluffing a potential Ice Punch. They did farm one past the Ice Punch. Rage Fist does get shielded as the opponent did not want to let an Ice Punch land. Very nice catch onto the Metagross. This should be a Thunder Punch as no one is going to be throwing a superpower at a Dragonite, and now Kingambit is brought onto the field. Foul Play will be getting the Metagross low, but will not take the knockout, so Metagross is able to hang on. The Bullet Punches are adding up. Metagross, oh my goodness, they play to the CMP tie that they do not win. Earthquake connects, and that's devastating damage onto Kingambit. I really like the idea of a no shield and then a metal sound down, and that's exactly what Arb is going for. Arb gets the full farm down, and that is just devastating. Back in comes the Dragonite, trying to go for the Dark Pulse, but the opponent clearly did not want to deal with Kingambit, and they will concede the match. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Annihilape into Shadow Snorlax. This is exactly where Annihilape wants to be. Opponent save switches into a Waterfall Gyarados. Interestingly enough, we've seen quite a few Waterfall Gyarados. Waterfall definitely does help with the steel types, but there's quite a few dragons in this meta, so I don't necessarily agree with the Waterfall choice. In comes Metagross. I would have assumed that Kingambit would get brought out here because that way they can't hit for super effective damage. Crunch is survivable by the Metagross. Metagross goes for an undercharge on the Meteor Mash, and Gyarados will put up the shield. Opponent gonna send in Snorlax, hoping for a farm down that they're not gonna get. This Meteor Mash does a lot of damage. It will do over half of Shadow Snorlax's health. Snorlax does get the farm down, but unless they're running a move like Outrage or Earthquake, then they can't really damage the Annihilape. Annihilape puts up the shield. Oh no, shielding a Body Slam as a ghost type feels absolutely awful. Annihilape's never going to be shielding here, as it is just going to be another Body Slam. Annihilape has so much loaded energy, but is very low. In the back is a Chesnaught. Oh my goodness, what is this doing here? Rage Fist gets no shielded. Annihilape didn't go for the close combat. In comes Gyarados trying to snipe down with a Waterfall, and Kingambit will absorb the Aqua Tail. Kingambit will get the metal sound down. Chesnaught's gonna need to go for a superpower if it wants to do any kind of meaningful damage. There should be loaded energy on the Annihilape as well. Ironhead is gonna land. That gets Chesnaught very, very low. You even shield just to force them to throw the superpower? I think the answer is yes. Shield comes up, Chesnaught has back-to-back superpowers, but now they're going to be at -2. They have no way of resetting that debuff. They take the KO, but Annihilape gets the counter down and secures the win. Hopping into the final match, leading Shadow Annihilape into Metagross. This is a pretty terrible lead. Safe switch into Kingambit. Opponent banks energy, sends out a Magnazone, and Magnazone has to decide, are they going to respect the Focus Blast? Kingambit farms up, no respect for the Focus Blast. That is unfortunate for Kingambit, and Kingambit will at the very least get a shield now because Dark Pulse would just do way too much damage. Magnazone continues to farm. Wild Charge, it might be enough to KO. It's going to be very close. They go for the Wild Charge. Kingambit survives, and Kingambit able to make another Dark Pulse. I don't know if they said the undercharge there or if Kingambit is just that bulky. Oh my goodness. And now in comes Metagross. In comes Metagross, everything going wrong for the opponent, and they get a Mirror Shot bait called. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it does. This surely is the Wild Charge. Shield comes up. No, they're just refusing to click the Wild Charge button, and now they send in Metagross. Metagross going for the Earthquake. Opponent gets a catch on a Togekiss, but unfortunately this catch doesn't even move me because it doesn't win them the game. Metagross outpaces, gets the Meteor Mash. That's going to be good night to the Togekiss. And from here, you can just save the shield for the Shadow Annihilape and take home the win. Back in comes the opponent's Metagross, but they're forced to throw a Meteor Mash, and then Shadow Annihilate with a shield is always going to be winning. We know that 6 Shadow Claws and a Meteor Mash do not KO Shadow Annihilate, as this is the perfect IV Shadow Annihilate. It has all the hit points that most Shadow Annihilates probably do not. Opponent has the second Meteor Mash, and if this KO'd, they win the game, but we already know it doesn't. Annihilate hangs on. Oh, tried to go for the bad manners close combat to end off the video, but tragedy strikes as the opponent will resign the match before the close combat lands. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, I do have a regular Annihilate for the Master League that's a Hundo, but having the Shadow Hundo, that is an incredibly cool flex. And I think it's actually pretty well positioned as an anti-meta Pokemon. With Pokemon like Hydreigon, Kingambit, and Snorlax being as strong as they are, having a fighter can be a pretty nice plus. The one big worry about running Kingambit, of course, would be Shadow Claw Metagross. Metagross, when it ran Bullet Punch, Annihilape was able to outpace and typically just win the 2-shield, because eventually you'd be able to land a Rage Fist and, thanks to your boost, counter down. But suddenly, you no longer have that pacing advantage, because Metagross is not only hitting you for super effective damage, but it's pacing at the same pace, it's winning charge stack priority, and Meteor Mash is devastating. This is part of why I firmly put Shadow Annihilate into the anti-meta camp for the Master League Premier Cup meta. I think it's a strong Pokemon that can absolutely get wins because there are quite a few meta targets for it to absolutely destroy. But with how rough that Metagross matchup is, with Gyarados not being a particularly fun matchup either, and with Flores being pretty catastrophic, there's definitely some pretty hard losses for it as well. But man, having the Shadow Hundo, it definitely feels like you kind of have to max it out no matter what the Shadow Hundo is. I'm very lucky that for my 3 Shadow Hundos, they're all pretty playable Pokemon. Famously, I have the Shadow Hundo Tyranitar, but I also have the Shadow Hundo Salamence and the Shadow Hundo Ursaluna. Speaking of Ursaluna, I think Shadow Claw Ursaluna would be a really cool core breaker for this Master League Premier Cup meta, and I do hope that Shadow Claw Ursaluna is given out in the March update. We've wanted Shadow Claw and Ursaluna for a while, and it still hasn't happened, but to have a very strong normal type that can fight back against these Metagrosses, it has Thunder Punch for Gyarados, and just with high horsepower or Trailblaze, it could hit for some very nice neutral damage into Forges. I think it would be a really cool Swiss Army knife pick for this Master League Premier Cup meta. And while I know we don't get the Master League Premier Cup often, I do always like to think about what Pokemon are kind of one move away from potential meta contender status, and I think that Ursaluna could definitely be one of them. For now, Annihilate, it's definitely more anti-meta, but if something like Shadow Claw Ursaluna rose in popularity, then that would be kind of a cool neutral matchup. Annihilape would be favored, of course, but Ursaluna with Shadow Claw and being able to hit back with something like a high horsepower would still be able to put up a pretty nice fight. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments this week if you've been playing more Retro Cup or Master Premier, and if you've been playing Master Premier, how has that been going for you? I feel like it's usually a pretty enjoyable meta, and I feel like this rotation is definitely no exception. I do want to give an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.